I finally have it! The physical edition of Dragonbane, a tabletop RPG, and let's just dive into it. If you're not aware, I've been playing tabletop RPGs for well over a decade at this point, and a few weeks ago I started a Dragonbane campaign on this channel. I stream it live every Tuesday, usually, and with a group of friends. We have a lot of fun, and Dragonbane is quite a new system. So after a while, Free League was kind enough to send me a physical copy for review purposes. So let's dive in and see what's in there. Back in 1982, the Swedish edition of what would become the formative tabletop RPG system in Sweden saw the light of day. Drakar Demoner, or Dragons and Demons as it would translate to, has since been quite of a mainstay in the Swedish tabletop RPG scene since then, and although it's overshined over time by D&D and Free League's Year Zero engine role-playing systems, it's seen a lot of editions released since the 1982. In 2021, Free League, or Fria Ligan as the local name is, acquired the rights to the IP from Riot Minds and set off to create the 11th edition. In 2022, a Kickstarter campaign launched, and the game blew right past the goal in a mere 4 minutes, ending shy of just 8 million Swedish crowns, which is miles ahead of the 100,000 Swedish crowns that they were hoping for. Eventually, in August 2023, just a few weeks ago, the full release was here. Unique for this time is that Drakar Demoner is finally reaching beyond the Scandinavian region with an English translation called Dragonbane. This edition has been released side by side with the 11th Swedish edition as the first English edition. Earlier this summer, Free League was kind enough to send me the PDF versions of the game, and after some planning and setup, I started a live-streamed campaign here on the channel with some of the great friends I've gotten from this daily community. And just a few days ago, a physical edition of Dragonbane came in the mail, so let's go over what's in the box, how it plays, and if it's worth your hard-earned cash. Dragonbane is a tabletop role-playing game, meaning you play it like a board game with a Game Master. The Game Master acts like the omnipotent presence, crafting the world around the players using the rules of the system as a tool. The game itself mainly takes place in the imagination of the people playing it. And just like D&D, Dragonbane is set in a fantasy world. There's magic, elves, dwarves, and the usual, but with a few key differences. Firstly, the less classic races, or kin as it's called in Dragonbane, which is honestly a better name for fantasy creatures, I might add. You won't find drow, tieflings, or dragonborn, but you can instead find the werewolf-inspired wolfkin and the mallards. Mallards are essentially Darkwing Duck, and they are glorious. Your kin defines one mechanic mainly, the innate ability, exclusive to each kin. The humans, for example, can spend a willpower point to use a different skill than the one they're trying to solve for, as they are adaptive, whereas the wolfkin, they have an ability to track their prey while hunting. You then choose a profession, you roll up your ability scores, pick skills, a weakness, and more to create your character. The process itself isn't that hard, but it's not as streamlined as in some other games, but it's definitely not the worst. It's quite good. Your abilities will define where you start with each skill. One of the beautiful aspects of Dragonbane is that you can use all skills at all times, and as you gain experience, you will improve said skills. After each session, you'll gain a few advancement marks. Use it to mark a skill, roll over that skill, and if you do, you up it by 1. 18 is the highest possible value, and when reached, you get a heroic ability. But why did I put an emphasis on the oath? Well, compared to systems like D&D, that situation when you're trying to up your skill is the only case you want to roll over your skill value. In every other case, you want to roll under it. That means at 18, the maximum possible value, it's only a 19 that counts as a fail, a 20 is always a critical fail and always extra bad, and that means 1 in 10 rolls will fail on average, which is quite low. Another interesting thing about the Dragonbane box is that while it comes with some pre-made adventures to get you started, set in a location known as the Misty Vale, there's just a little bit of background to the world. The rest you get to create yourself. The world builder in me rejoices at the freedom presented here, because while it still gives you ample ground to get started on, and I'm sure you can have a lot of fun with for years just inside the Misty Vale if you so desire, and at that point I'm sure you can find a lot of different worlds that built by others, or maybe freely themselves, that you can buy to continue the adventures in, if you'd rather not do it yourself. But you can also build a massive world around this misty veil and decide what's in it yourself. You find the country, the geographics, the politics, and everything, and I love doing that. Dragonbane as a tabletop role-playing system is honestly great. It's very easy to get into, and it also leaves a good amount of minute details pretty vague, so you can adapt it to your own tastes around the table, while still being meaty enough to be a solid set of guidelines to keep playing and keep things being engaging. One detail I realized quickly is that the world of Dragonbane is lethal. It does borrow the system of death saving throws from D&D, meaning that a downed character can come back to life if they roll well, or at least giving their teammates ample of time to help them up. But that doesn't change the fact that the maximum possible health for a character is 18, and can only be increased further by magical items or specific heroic ability. In other words, most, if not all characters will for quite a long time have less than 18 hit points. Your average attack, well, they deal about 1 or 2 10-sided dice. That means you can deal up to 20 damage in a single roll if you roll really well. Defeating a foe or finding yourself at the mercy of an enemy is therefore usually achieved by just a single hit or 2. Combat is made even more interesting by the limitation of a single action per round. This is an interesting take on the first move advantage. The player or enemy who goes first each round can attack, of course, but spending that action means they will be unable to block or dodge any attacks themselves, whereas a player going second will have to adapt to the situation. Did the enemy miss? Perfect, time to strike back, they can't save themselves. Did they succeed in their attack roll? Well, time to weigh the risk against reward. A dodge or block are not without downsides, but soaking the damage can be lethal. There are also a lot of additional things you can do, like picking up improvised weapons, like if you're in an inn, you can draw from a deck of cards and get, oh, I got a wine bottle, and I'll slap someone's head with it and deal a certain amount of damage. Like in the forest, there are rocks you can jump off and take someone down. There's a lot of flexibility to the system, but it's also like you have one action and one thing you can do each turn, and that makes for quite interesting dynamic. But Dragonbane, being made by Free League, also borrows ideas from the Year Zero engine games. The way that food, rest, and traveling through unknown terrain is handled reminds me a lot of how it's done in the Year Zero engine based Forbidden Lands that I played a lot. And for a moment, comparing Dragonbane to the more popular D&D, it's a lot less rule heavy, and it's really driving the role-playing rather than the gaming side of things, something that I personally love in role-playing games. While the professions mainly control your starting skills, any profession can learn to do just about anything, meaning that you can train up wherever you wish and need over time, meaning that the game is flexible while sacrificing some unique profession flair, but that's fine. Again, it's a reasonable trade-off, in my opinion. Let's say you're in a group of players and the tank of the group suddenly isn't able to play anymore for the next year or so. Let's say they get a kid and I can't join the sessions in quite a while. That doesn't mean you're now screwed and without a tank. You can just respec someone. Someone can just start training their dodging abilities and take that position. The end result is a rule set that is easy to pick up and learn, to a point where I would argue that Dragonbane might even be the ultimate fantasy tabletop role-playing game for beginners. If you've always wanted to check out the world of role-playing games, then Dragonbane makes for a great beginning. But it's also engaging and well-made for more seasoned players as well. It doesn't just limit yourself to just beginners, it's for everyone. Especially when you consider the price point and the contents of the box that you buy. It's about $45 that will get you a box with a rule book, a book with 11 adventures set in the Misty Vale that are really good to get you started. You get a map of said Vale, a booklet called Alone in Deep Fall Breach, letting you play Dragonbane on your own without a DM. You're both the DM and the owner player. You get illustrated playing cards for adventures, treasures, initiative, and more. Something like 10 dice, 5 pre-made characters and 5 blank character sheets, a double-sided battle map, and cardboard standees for both characters and monsters alike. There's a lot of value for money in here, and all you need to get going. Free League also sent me an additional set of dice, which is always useful, and a DM screen. Both of them are really nice, and I've honestly never been good at using a DM screen for anything useful personally though, but for other DMs, I'm sure they will love it. At the end of the day, Dragonbane is an incredibly well-made product. Perfect for newcomers specifically, but for all role players alike. If Baldur's Gate 3 got you interested in playing more adventures around the table, Dragonbane will give you everything you need for a low price, and it's honestly well worth it. Dragonbane definitely has my seal of approval, and I can't wait to keep playing on the stream and maybe even introduce my kids at home to some home sessions in a few years. And if you want to see Dragonbane in action, come by my streams, each Tuesday right here on the channel. So make sure you're subscribed and have notifications on so you can be there with us live next time we go. See you next time, and maybe even on the adventures. Bye.